everyone one more time. We're here with, believe it or not, Jon Kern, the one and the only. You always wanted to talk about Agile and Agile Manifesto. There we go. I'm going to let Jon introduce himself in his own words, but I can tell you I met Jon for the first time a couple of years back at a conference in Lisbon. And there are some highlights that I have, and I'm going to share with you. I've always told everyone behind Jon as well. Jon, despite what he's done, and you're about to discover what he's done, he is very humble and very approachable. And the last time we talked together, he was insisting on keeping this event very informal, and he said, let's just let it go and see what the audience wants. So that's what we're going to do. You're in the driver's seat, everyone. So you make you could choose how we're going to run this session. My idea is that we're going to keep Jon on 3 topics: past, present, and future when it comes to Agile. And we're going to organize, hopefully, the questions around these 3 pillars time-wise. But Jon, can I ask you to introduce yourself for those of us who might not know Jon enough?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So I would say I'm a practitioner. I'm an aeronautical engineer, kind of first half of my career, all kinds of crazy stuff like cruise missile engine, altitude chamber testing, and then flight simulation, centrifuge, Top Gun style F-14 flat spin. I put a lot of people through flat spin training. So really, what a blessed, incredibly blessed career. Started my own, did a lot of Defense Department. So if you're wondering where did I come up with lightweight methodologies to fend off heavyweight methodologies, it was doing Defense Department work where there was a military standard specification. Of course there was, for how to do software, and it was stupid, just like most big stupid processes, very wasteful. And I was like, I'm a taxpayer, this is dumb, there's got to be a better way to work. So at least 3 out of 4 values definitely came from that experience and my kind of insistence on a few things. So even though I was very young, I was like, probably 19 at the manifesto gathering, just joking. Wasn't really that young, but I wasn't quiet, very, very vocal, because for me, it's about trying to do the best thing we can with our resources for our clients, our customers, our users. So I morphed from that into founding my own engineering company. And I think our first client was IBM to build their next generation manufacturing execution system, which is what runs all their computer factories. And of course, it wasn't my little company. It was, we had to have a big company that they could sue. But it was our team's ability to help do the design and run a small team to do C++ code. So that was a wonderful opportunity to practice a lot of what I preach. And that was in the mid-90s. So again, pre-Agile Manifesto. And then good friend of mine, Peter Code, my object-oriented mentor, lured me away from my own company, and we founded another company, TogetherSoft, which built a UML, universal, basically a modeling tool for software, UML tool. And then we sold that 3 years later to Borland, and did a few more startups. And I still code to this day for firefighters. It's a Blazemark. It's something called pre-incident planning. So I try to, admittedly, it's not big. I only get to argue with myself. It's not like it's a team of one, but it's production code, and it's does good work. So I try to keep myself honest while I'm going around helping other teams do good stuff and learn how to grow as a team and learn that work doesn't have to suck, basically. So that's about me. I'd like to just share that I'm not just a single focused person. I have a lot of experience.
You didn't mention the manifesto that much.
Oh, yeah, then there was that thing. That was while I was at TogetherSoft, where because we had an office in St. Petersburg, Russia, so I lived there half time from 2000 to 2003. So that was fantastic experience. And in between was gathering at Snowbird. And that was a wonderful blessing, a wonderful opportunity. And I think because I was working, I didn't even go to some of the early Agile Alliance meetings, the Agile meetings. I was on the board initially. I think maybe the first board for the Agile Alliance, but yeah, I'm kind of wondering, yeah, Alistair, where the hell was I? When you started these conferences? Huh. Oh, I know. I was working. I mean, I say that facetiously, but yeah, I often wondered, like, yeah, I don't really remember. And I will say then I checked out of the Agile community when it appeared that all the rage was 2 days and you get some sort of certificate and then you get hired. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm still trying to learn how this Agile stuff works. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm pretty sure, not, 2 days is better than no days, but I kind of went off and just felt like, let's just go do some fun stuff, build some real software, have some good times, and y'all good luck. But now I'm back. I mean, I've been back for a few years now, but so yeah, that's me in the Agile world.
Well, thank you. And that's fascinating, everyone, that despite all what Jon has been contributing to the software industry, if I may say so, not just Agile, but just the software in general. But he's still, in his own words, he's practicing what he preaches. So he's very hands-on, and that's fascinating. Jon, can we start with the first question, if you don't mind?
Sure.
So what is Agile to you, Jon?
Ah, yeah, it's definitely not a methodology. Just get that right out there. That's a good start. But for me, Agile is really it's a way of being. It's a mindset. It's kind of how I approach everything regarding. It doesn't have to just be software, but trying to get stuff done, especially in a team fashion. So for a lot of times I'll use a bunch of little quips like Agile is about reducing the gap in time between taking an action and getting feedback. If you think of it, that's testing. Unit testers, an extreme example. The most expensive way to get feedback is to build the whole thing and see if anybody wants to buy it. So little things like that is kind of how I think of it. It's very pragmatic. If you look at the values and the principles, and if you live them, I think agility can flourish. And there's a lot of humility in the manifesto. If you notice at the top, it's a very active voice. It's not like we've come down from the mountain. Literally, we're on a mountain. And then we bestowed upon the peons, some words of wisdom. No, it's like we're in the process of doing, and we're still trying to think it through. And that's still true. I think Agile is super, super simple, but really, really hard. It's the hardest. For me, it requires constant partial attention. Because the minute you sort of take your eye off the ball or let your guard down or rest on your laurels or insert your little, whatever those are called, here, you can fall back and you can regress. So for me, it's really about how pragmatically can we achieve the most value in the eyes of our users / customers with the least amount of effort and have fun.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jon. The authors of the manifesto back in 2001, you were all coming from software, right? So that's what you had in common.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I mean, there was a couple, I won't say outliers, but like Brian, for example, he's basically testing. Brian Merrick, right? I'm really focused on testing. Stephen Mellor was the funny guy focused on executable UML. So I don't know. In the old days, I thought the world was going to be taken over by object-oriented design and UML and model-driven architecture, but no. So he was a little bit of an outlier. But the rest of us were, I had books and magazines with Uncle Bob, right? I was like, wow, there's Uncle Bob. Like, I've read his articles, and I know there's probably a lot of youngsters here that might not know that there used to be a thing called magazines with like software and code and stuff. But yeah, So there were, some famous people there, Kent Beck, XP, so
Like
I'm
the
this.
the Code magazine. I still
Yeah, like Dr. Jobs journal and C++ report. I still have them up in the barn,
if you go to the manifesto, there is a page dedicated to the authors, where we have a little bit of a biography for each of them. And Jon is the only person who talks about business value.
For me, it's the most important thing, because you can do, like, there's a lot of people who will talk about efficiency. Well, I want to talk about effectiveness. And what is, effectiveness in my definition is measured against delivering value. And with teams I work with, literally the first thing we talk about is, what's our purpose? Why are we here? Like, if you're starting a new product design, that's the first question. If we're working to help a team find a better way to work, that's our first. I mean, it sounds dopey. Literally, the first exercise in both of those cases are, what do you do here? And anybody who can channel the office space, it's the Bob and Bob efficiency. Like, what is it that you do here? What does value mean here? Do you even know? Some teams do, some teams do not. Well, make money. Oh, okay, that's lame. Maybe that's a lagging indicator. So by starting with value, everybody on the team, we hire smart people. We got, folks who can use their brains, and I want everybody to be able to make micro judgments in everything we do, to be able to say, what's the shortest, fastest, easiest way to get to value. And if we don't have a team that understands where we're headed, so a lot of what I'll do with teams is, we create like a mantra. Or I remember an insurance app that was freaking awesome. I loved what we did there. Lean, mean, question and answering machine. That was, like, anyway, I digress. But the point is, the more that people understand value, the more that we can deliver more for less, because others might come, hey, you know what, we can do this thing in a much faster way. Oh, cool. But if you have a more of a command and control, and that's in Jira, just do it. Or I was just talking with the folks about WizGIF. Like, yeah, if you're doing that stuff, you're already lost. I mean, I'd love to have conversations about that, but no, just have a freaking conversation around, do we really understand value? Have some scope negotiation. Can we help the let's say you got a product owner or the customer, can we help deliver the most value for the least amount of effort? And we can always add more, but you can never take away excess that you might have done. So that's why I'm a nut about value, is because that is the key to doing effective work versus busy work.
Right. And that might be actually the missing link in what the actually companies trying to become agile actually have.
Yeah, Steve, the what is value is such a fascinating question. And that's what we drop into the teams that we work with is, yeah, what's value here? And sometimes you get blank stares, and sometimes you get robust,
Yeah.
discussions. Yeah, it's so important. If you don't know that, then I get it. Not everybody cares. It's a job. I like coding. Don't care if it's valuable or not. It's
Right.
fun. Okay, it's just not how I'm wired. Yeah, I get bored. I want to do the most and see faces be excited. And a lot of times we're insulated from the client, which is also bad.
Then I'm gonna go through the first question, which is rather past related. It says, sorry, I've got my screen here. Let me move it over. It says, was it intended to create the manifesto back in 2001, or did it just happen by accident of maybe a few?
No, we knew this was going to be big. We were planning on a major global. No, yeah, it was completely by accident. Sorry, that was humor. It was a bunch of folks coming together to see what was common. I think Uncle Bob had a notion. There were these pattern language meetings, like plops or something like that, in Portland maybe, that I always wanted to go to but never could. And so I think there might have been a sense of we could maybe create something, but I don't even recall that. might have been in an email. So I think it was mostly we created something. The crazy thing is those 4 bullets with 17 people more or less standing around the whiteboard. And I'm kind of a big wordsmith nut. We did get all thumbs up on the wording. We messed around a little bit here and there. 100% consensus, which is freaking amazing, because there were a lot of egos in that room. I mean, I wasn't one, but there are a lot of other guys, you know, that were fairly egotistical. But I always say we left our egos at the door. So no, I would not go so far as to say we planned on this in this format or anything like that. And I would also, I don't think this is the right story, but I tell this story to myself. You know, some of us are still in the room. Ward Cunningham is leaving. And before the door shuts, he turns and says, "Hey, should I put this on the internet?" Remember, this is February 2001, right? I mean, the internet was trash. So yeah, why not? We wrote something, so might as well, not, you know, thinking nothing of it. So it didn't really happen like that, but that is the, I guess I want to convey. I don't think anybody knew that this would resonate like it did. And it's humbling. It's amazing. With all due humility, it's a little bit like the Declaration of Independence or something, like random people, although that was one person, but or the Constitution, you know, like a handful of random people, kind of random, got together, produced something. All right, we're good. It's amazing. And it resonated. You know, so I think we got to the gist of what it meant to do software development. You know, like it's the fundamentals. Like, tell me what doesn't apply today. Pretty much nothing. So yeah, it was a bit of a miracle, I'd say.
Has there ever since been any effort amongst you to reconsider, revise the manifesto in any way ever?
That was asked at the 10th anniversary. I always say no. I mean, my initial is no, just it's, yeah, the Constitution had ways to amend it. You know, we don't need that. This isn't that complicated. So no, it's, matter of fact, I was working with the Polish Agile community. They made another run at a translation, and I couldn't convince Ward to replace the page. He's like, nope. I was like, oh man, really? I think they spent more time on this than we collectively spent on the manifesto. And I was trying to advocate for them, and I helped them do some of the translation. Fascinating. That's what kicked me off a little bit on this reimagining Agile thing. We'll talk about that later. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a big no. No, it is what it is.
All right, fascinating. Um, so let's transition everyone, if you agree, to present and where we are with Agile today. I know there are thousands of questions probably want to ask Jon about the past, but for the sake of time, again, I want to give you an opportunity in terms of where we are, the state of Agile today. Anyone who wants to jump in?
Well, maybe I can try my luck. I was kind of reluctant whether my question concerns the past or the present. So we go. I always found it interesting that apparently quite a few of the original signatories of the manifesto were from the embedded systems world, as am I. And yet embedded systems seems to be more reluctant than other industries to embrace Agile. And I was wondering whether you had a comment on that.
Huh. I know James Grenning. Yeah, he's a good friend. Who else is in embedded? I mean, I did some embedded work, but yeah. Who else do you think was in?
I can't quite remember. I can't say I've researched it in that sense, but
Yeah.
I have noticed it. Like somebody was writing firmware for HP printers, that sort of thing. There was a bunch of guys. I was surprised to notice that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that. Yeah, that would be like an interesting angle. There was certainly the XP contingent. That's the first, you know, XP was famous at that time, so to speak. I practiced a version of XP and feature-driven development. And then there was the you know, the 2 Scrum guys, like, oh, never heard of Scrum. Looks like a generic project management thing. Okay, whatevs, or whatever I should say. You know, DSDM, Ari, like, what? What's that? Oh, it's this thing over in Europe. Okay. So it was really, I think, more about different approaches, how did we approach things? And I would say probably the embedded side of things, like James and whatnot. For me, and I certainly did a lot of like real-time code as well. So, I think that factors into mostly probably how you set things up and the cost of change and things like that. So I don't know. It's an interesting, I never thought about it in terms of the things that most of us worked on at that time. It's an interesting question. Yeah. Lousy answer, but an interesting question. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Did you get the bike fixed? Looks like it. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. But his light fell off on the trip to school today, so need to get that fixed before tomorrow.
Jon, you've been very vocal about what you've called the Agile Industrial Complex. Tell us a little about that, please.
Yeah, I think it's my way of expressing a little bit of the obscuring of what agility means, because individuals and interactions over process and tools. Well, what did that emphasize? I get it. You can practice anything that you choose in a very agile way, but I think much like SAFe reminds me of RUP, Rational Unified Process. Again, I could morph Rational Unified Process, which was a giant CD full of diagrams like SAFe. I could morph that into my way of working, my practice, but most people didn't. It's just like waterfall. It was, oh, by the way, don't forget to do some feedback. And oh, by the way, don't use this. Right? A lot of things just have a life of their own. And I think the certification process did. And while there was definitely value in helping more people learn, and it certainly expanded, I think some of the backlash, there's a question about the getting sick of Agile. I don't think nobody in their right mind would get sick of Agile. People might get sick of something else, right? So it's like, I don't think that word means what you think it means. So part of the goal of reimagining Agile, for example, and I'm trying to do exemplars, interview people. So hit me up if y'all work in a place or have worked in a place where agility is flourishing and it's awesome. Love to get an interview and dig into that a little bit, because there's a lot of good going on out there, but there's also a lot of, let's just say, going through the motions and mistaking the emphasis of on a process, or make sure we follow a process. Well, no customer's asking for any of that, right? It's just a means to an end. And I think sadly the means have overtaken, in some sense, the real goal is to satisfy our customer. And I think we lost a lot of that. Not purposely. It's not right. Nobody planned it. These certifications, are fine, and nobody planned the negative side effects. But I think we humans tend to gravitate towards things that might seem simple. Oh, just follow these steps and magic will happen. Well, it will if you're only doing simple things. But as you do more complicated and more complex things, you have to have a better way of working. You literally can't use the same techniques that might even work on complicated things to solve complex problems. You have to have a much different mindset. And I think that all gets lost. And so there was maybe I don't want to call them a snake oil salesman, because they are purposely selling something that's not real, because it's a little harsh, but I think it's, buyer beware. There's a lot more to development than knowing a process. Because you know what? Before these processes existed, people were successful, right? You can figure it out yourself. You don't need a book. You still need the manifesto, though. I don't think anybody's successful before that, but no, like realize how people work. That's really the key. People together with a vision and a goal, understanding the destination, understanding value. We will come up with a good way of working That's what humans do. And I think a lot of that's lost. You just install a methodology and assume success will follow. And it doesn't. And then people get blamed, and they blame Agile. And it's not Agile. Like most of the things you see people complaining about Agile, I look at those and none of those are Agile. Like, well, yeah, that's not Agile. Neither is that stupid thing you did. Stop complaining about that. That's not Agile. That's something else. You just did some stupid process. Anyway, yeah,
Right.
sorry.
And that might be the source of frustration. Going back to the other question we had, the process or the framework, not the core essence of what Agile is all about, which is all about probably being adaptable to the changing environment and learning from customers.
Yep.
Right.
First value.
Absolutely. Oftentimes we find ourselves creating a solution and then scratching our head and say, okay, God, now we got a solution. Let's go and look for a problem for this solution. What's the problem we can solve with this solution? There is a next question which says, what advice would you give to organizations that are just beginning their journey with Agile?
Oh, hallelujah. Be thankful, but don't fall for snake oil salesman. Yeah, call me. Yeah. The best way to start is, I think, to take a small group that you want to work and actually there are some really good techniques, because for me, it's a combination of the technical foundations. I'm a kind of a freak about domain modeling and having a consistent way to build things, and doing this all with an Agile approach. So it's if you understand, it's a very holistic process, and you can actually learn this. I would just say, don't fall for excess process in the face of maybe alluring pressure. And I would also say that the biggest thing is to get the folks in the room that, especially if you can have radical empathy for the client, the end user, right? The key is to really get radical about interactions and learning how to work together, and resist all those temptations to think it's a factory and we're producing cars. No, we're not. I mean, you might be, but I'm going to assume you might also be trying to produce creative, innovative things. And it takes a very different process. And it also requires a incredible growth mindset, the ability to understand that it's okay. Like, I think my superpower is one of them, is I can deal with fuzzy things. I'm okay with not knowing. Most people aren't. Most companies need to know. Most people think if we just plan harder, we'll be able to predict everything. Well, no, you won't. Watch. I'll just watch you fail, and you'll think you can plan hard. We just didn't plan enough. No. So, a lot of it is mindset. And I mean, it does sound facetious, but literally, if you want to know more about that, happy to share techniques that's helped me and other teams be very successful.
Okay, folks, we're going to transition to future, possibly, or what's going to happen to Agile, or where would Jon see Agile in future? So again, if you have any questions in that direction, yes, let us hear that. Otherwise, we're going to go to your questions in Slido.
Hi.
Dimitri.
Hi, Jon. I really share your views on agility and the industrial complex. I guess I disagree with a lot of people, and I'm maybe a nuisance to many. But I really find it a hard fight to actually promote agility or even mention, the manifesto, because the agile complex has drifted so far away from it that to add insult to the injury of not reading the first 4 sentences of the manifesto, most people haven't seen the principles page. And I really don't know how one can actually miss it or even resist looking at it. And so the observation is, even the first sentence of the principles page, which is gives you the value and valuable software and continuous delivery of valuable software, is such a radical idea that it's being fought by, well, I'm also in Munich, like Tagi, by a lot of people. And I just, I have no clue how to actually restart the agility thing. I have experienced, successful agility, and that was when the stakeholder, the boss of a particular group, actually gave some freedom to decide, on the process, and we iterated really quickly and improved without any framework or whatnot. But I am clueless as to how to move away from that industrial complex and open the eyes of people and say, this is not agile and this has nothing to do with agile, maybe.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's hard to know the context that you're in, but you could probably just ignore, in some sense, the word, right? Because it's very pragmatic what Agile's all about. And so you don't necessarily need to like touch the live wire if it is one. And I think the easiest way might be to, I don't know, I'm just thinking of this on the fly. If you could sort of rephrase some of the elements and just use them as, I don't want to say like a retro, but you could almost do like a retro on them. But in other words, you could say, hey, how are we doing with, pick one of the values or pick one of the principles. And, do you think if we actually talked more and had some interactions with the, I don't know, the users, we might short circuit some of the waste we're doing. So some of the techniques we use with teams is we'll work with the team for, it literally takes 2 to 3 days. And we can have, kind of like a value stream approach for, all right, let's just talk about how you're working. How do you currently work? And then that often brings out, just from going from start to end, like let's say idea to cash, and what do we do in between? You'd be surprised that the team, we don't invite the high-powered people, but the folks that actually do the work, and you get all kinds of pains coming out, and that's a great way to start. Oh, cool. And it's a little bit of a technique we use to help people realize, oh yeah, I guess there are some problems in how we work. Oh, cool. You want to try to think of new ways of working that we can maybe address those pains. So it's a way to get a team, and you don't have to mention Agile at all. Because it really is, people know it. And then the other challenge you have is, what's the environment like? What's the system? Because the system often drives the behavior, and that's a hard one to crack as well, because it's like
I think it's
shocking what you find out. Yeah, you're like, oh wow, no wonder the team didn't want to do something logical like split these stories, and then you find out there's some weird language in the contract with the vendors. It's like, oh my goodness, what the, so it's sometimes crazy what is accidentally happening because of some system forces that you can't see. So anyway, that's a technique that I use to try to, in short order, open up and find out what's really going on, and then look at ourselves. But people have to be wanting to do it. You have to find a little bit of a, hey, you think we could try working better? What do nah, I'm cool. All right.
I think there's a lot of fear, well, probably projected by the system. And with fear, I think it's really hard to convince teams to give you some kind of benefit of the doubt to try things out, even if you don't name things. I stopped actually naming things because I think Alan Kelly is one of the agile guys who said when he's doing consulting, he never calls anything by its name, because then it'll be just, we tried it, it didn't work for us. And
yeah, that sounds like good advice, because a lot of times, like Agile, oh, it's Agile. Wait, what do you mean? What, you start digging, it's, oh no. Yeah, so it's important to try to get a conversation going, and it might fail the first time or 2 or 3.
I like that approach of helping the teams focus on their problems first. So start with the problem, and then come to a solution. That solution might be agile or something else, but
yeah, and what we layer into that is some opportunities for some vertical development, for some growth, and it's a bit of a Trojan horse too. It's finally like sometimes these people never even talk to each other at this depth, let's say, and sometimes they don't even realize what other people on their teams do. Right. So it's amazing sometimes what you see happen. And sometimes we've seen like literally tears in the eyes of the leadership at the end of the process when they get presented what we learned, what we did, and what we're planning to do. So it's sometimes I think a cathartic release. It's the first half that we do. Yeah, it can be really powerful.
Jon, if we ask you to name a company that in your view is agile, would you be able to come up with a name or an example? Yeah. And I think that we could use that as a segue to talk about a cool new thing that you're working on.
Yeah, my gut answer is no.
No, okay.
I mean, I know some people that are working in an agile way in some business, but I'm just gonna, nothing popped into my head right away. I think there probably are some. I mean, Elon Musk and SpaceX, the crazy things they do, like they're not afraid to fail. It's right. There's a big culture of like if you didn't remove enough and it still worked, maybe you should have gone further. And that's a little bit of I have a mantra about making things small, whether it's a feature, an MVP. It's my world is very recursive. It's think of the smallest thing you can do to treat this. I treat everything like a hypothesis. Think of the smallest thing you can do for this feature, let's say. And then go slightly uncomfortably smaller yet. And I do that, because I want to emphasize, we often gold plate things. We often think you need it all. We often do way too much work, way too far in advance of the need, fooling ourselves with our big egos, thinking we know it all. And so I try to challenge that, and I say uncomfortable, because if you're not uncomfortable putting that in front of the customer, you've done too much. That's what I condition myself. And you would probably laugh if you saw things, how small I can make a feature and what I show the client in a safe way, not like I blast it out to everybody, but, and that's again, another skill that can be learned. Most of these things are small little ideas. But yeah, that's a huge one.
It leads to the last question I have. Tell us, please, a little bit about reimagining Agile. What is it all about?
Yeah, and sadly, I did just meet with the dev team, and we're not immune to, like, oh, I kind of joked like, wow, I guess now that we're all off of our summer vacations and stuff, even though I'm going on vacation on Saturday, we're a little bit behind, I'll say, on reimaginingagile.com, but that will be a place that my hypothesis is exemplars exist. And as I said, if anybody has any that you want to talk to me, hit me up on LinkedIn. But exemplars are examples of where agility is flourishing. So it can be small. It can be, it doesn't have to be the whole company. It doesn't, it could even have been and then gone, but there was a period that you can recall. The idea being that these can serve a couple of different purposes. One being they're beacons of hope, just like you said. Can I go to reimaginingagile.com and find some heartwarming stories, beacons of hope that this is what good looks like. This is a fascinating story. Look what sometimes it's even a bad thing happens, yet they were able to overcome it and recover and do some good things because they were agile. And the other side sort of the same coin is we then dig into these stories and try to find out, okay, how did you create the environment to allow this to happen? Because that's what we need to learn. Like learning a process is child's play. Learning how to get an organization like Dimitri, like learning how to break that system. How do we fix that? I don't know. I don't have any solid answers. I have some ideas, but the idea is that these exemplars might yield some small nuggets of gold, some techniques Simple things, not another manifesto or anything like that, but just something that other people can see, this, like a pattern library. In the context of this story, let's say, we use these 3 techniques that helped unlock agility or something like that. So that's the idea. I believe that my hypothesis is I can find stories, can mine them for some nuggets of gold, can share them, start getting more people to create these stories around the world, and maybe more than just a few of us doing these interviews. But that's my thought, is to help folks recognize what good is so they can combat the negative bashing in LinkedIn, for example, or so that Dimitri can show stuff, use it. There's a lot of youngsters in the crowd now that the only thing they've ever known is, quote, Agile, right? And who knows what they're actually being exposed to that's being called Agile. Might not really be Agile. So it's an opportunity to combat some of the negative aspects that are out in the interweb, and a place to potentially find a library of move. Well, we're calling them moves, like a chess move, something small. But yeah, that's the idea. And I'm still doing interviews, and I don't have anything published, so I suck. The end. Yeah.
Thank you. So everyone, Reimagine Agile is an initiative by Jon and a few other pioneers. I've just pasted a link in chat just in case you're interested. That's going to hopefully in future contain a number of, as Jon explained, framework agnostic stories of how Agile has succeeded in other companies and other teams. So we're gonna have to close in a few minutes. I wanted to give everyone a chance to ask any remaining questions, as long as we still have the opportunity to talk to Jon. I know there are some questions still in Slido, but any direct questions from the audience before we go through them?
Yeah, I have one. So if you met people like Jon, having a lot of experience and worked a lot in agile environments, I think there's a pattern. I'm working in agile environments since 15 years now. And the question, do you remember one company which is really agile? And I think we either don't know any company or only really a few, to all those you really experience in agile. So we're still striving for finding the right companies where they are applying the methods in the right way and benefiting from all this better way of working. And you also said if you go to the company and ask to the working people, you easily find out where the problems are. What's the problem and where it's stuck and where it sucks and all the things. Yeah, I have exactly the same situations. And if I go to the management and ask them, hey, don't you want to deliver value? They say, yes, we want to deliver value. So everyone is claiming and heading into the right direction, but we don't manage it to convince the people doing the right things, only complaining and thinking about those things, but not really bringing them on the right way. And I still struggle with this and how to crash the system that we push more companies to the agile way, because we believe it's the right way.
Yeah, no, that's a really compelling statement, and with maybe a little question baked in there. I think it's that is the challenge, and I'm hoping Reimagining Agile can maybe start to chip away at that, because I think there's a fair amount of misconception. There's a fair amount of potential fake Agile that gives it that bad name, and then of course there's like Dimitri is like, I better not even say that word. And so I think the way out of it is to show more examples of good and heighten like anything, you want to amplify the good and dampen the bad type of thing. So fan the flames of the good. Beacons of hope is something I've used, and get more evidence out there, to your point, in the form of exemplars and anything else. And I appreciate there's some stories here, and anybody else who's willing to contribute to this. I'd love that. There are some things on the Agile Alliance website that I was directed to, and one of the guys I actually was talking to, he had a good exemplar example. So they're out there, but I think they don't. It's much like restaurant reviews. More people are likely to put a negative review out there than a positive one. So I think part of it is it's out. I'm convinced there are companies where they're kicking ass. I mean, I've worked in some, and been created others where we're very agile, very living the dream, so to speak. But most of the time, I think they're just working away, doing the good things, and you just don't hear about it as much. So yeah, how do we break that? It's a great question, Bastian. Cute little boy there too. Yeah. You might not have even seen that your boy was.
Yeah, I have seen him. He was
okay.
interested.
Yeah.
I was running away from dinner and looking
Yeah.
at what he's doing.
All right. Okay. I think we could take maybe one more question, a quick one, if there's any from the audience.
A quick one, Jon. Have you in the last years used UML anymore?
Well, I do, because for me, it's as far as communication and rich interactions, for me, I call it the lingua franca of the domain model is the world. What we're trying to solve, we use business terms and we use the real language. So I use it all the time, because a little bit of domain modeling, maybe a little bit of UI design, you got some features that you want to do against that. It's just a great way to describe a lot in a very compact way. So for me, it's the only way I know how to work, is make sure we all understand what the world of our problem domain is, and the rest maps into that. So that way we use the same language, everybody, whether it's QA, whether it's the business, whether it's features, whether it's what we name the tables, what we name the classes. Yeah, so for me, it's a critical part of allowing you to be agile. So yeah, I use UML, but yeah, I use it very simply. That's another thing that got way overcomplicated. Trust me, because we had to build all that crap into the TogetherSoft tool. So I knew far too much about UML. A little bit like a PDF. I know far too much about PDF. Don't ask me why.
Jon, I can't thank you enough. For those of you on the call, we are trying to get Jon back here, maybe hopefully at some point in person in Munich. Also, if you want to share your story in a session like this, there is a call for proposals. You could share your thoughts with us. Jon, thanks a lot for your time. It's been a pleasure again talking to you. Thanks for getting us all inspired with your stories and insights. And thanks everyone for being here. Thank you.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. I always enjoy talking with folks about real things. So anytime, just call me. You know how to find me, Taggy. Yeah, I'll be there.
Sure.
Thank you.
And even at your companies, if you want to, call me up. Yeah, hit me up.
True agility, go to Jon.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Thank you so much.